Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 35th CALLERLAB Convention. Today is the 17th of March. 18th of March. Yesterday was St. Patrick's Day. I thought it was still the 17th. And this is the session on Grow Your Business. I am Bill Heyman, your moderator. Our panelist is Paul Walker from Kannapolis, or the Charlotte area in North Carolina. And Paul has very broad shoulders, so he's going to do a lot of heavy lifting. I forgot to tell you that, by the way. Anyway, all kidding aside, Paul and I talk, and Paul does have a presentation. I have some comments I would like to make, and I really hope that we can depend on you for raising questions, making comments, and really stimulating. So we want to devote at least half of the time we've got to feedback from the audience, questions, and follow-up. So with no further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Paul, and we will start.
Thank you. I call this Grow Your Business 101. To handle yourself, use your head. To handle others, use your heart. I guess the first question that we need to really ask ourselves, is this calling really a business? Now, if you ask a caller who makes his primary living through calling, you better believe it's a business. But for those of us that are local callers, most dancers look at us as a hobbyist, not a professional business. Hopefully that's going to change. The IRS says it's a business. We all know that because we have to fill out the Schedule C form to claim all this money we make. And there was an article in USA Today back in 2005. And if we have a business, we have to sell our product. I want to read a couple of sentences from this article. And it said, the seniors sweepstake kicks into high gear this weekend. This is in 2005, December, as the first baby boomers turn 60 and states and cities and small towns mount ad campaigns to attract up-and-coming retirees. Up to 20% of the 79 million baby boomers who will retire between December of 2005 and December of 2015 will be moving. Oh no, they'll be retiring, 20% of them. But 20% of them will be moving from one state to another after they quit work. These people are going to be looking for something to do. During their lifetime, most of the husband and wife have both worked. They've channeled their lives to going to work on Monday, coming back all through the week and then on Friday, and they don't want to go out on the weekend. They don't want to join clubs. They don't want another job. They're a complete different type of person than the people that we have in square dancing today. And our marketing plans are going to have to change to penetrate that market. These people are going to have a lot of discretionary income that they're going to be able to spend, and they're going to be looking for fun. The first thing that I thought of, they are not going to be looking to go to school. They are not going to be willing to go to 25 or 30 weeks of lessons so they can go somewhere and have fun. They're looking for instant gratification. So what about our product? We've got to change our product to meet that kind of a need. There are three key things that happen with the first year or so in a business. You get to know your product. Our product is, of course, Square Dance Calling. We have to increase our skills. You get to know your market. And then you get good employees. We sit back and say, well, what do you mean you get good employees? We use dancers to sell our product. And we better get good dancers and good leaders within the dancing ranks to do that. We need to set some goals. What do we want to do? Every function we have is the same as a business. It's not much different. Keep good records. Be consistent when you fill out your Schedule C income tax form. If you've ever been audited, you know what I'm talking about. How are we going to deal with competition? You go, competition? Sure. Clubs compete against one another for dancers to come dance with them. Callers compete against other callers for engagements to call. And it is competitive. It is competitive. It is said that an attitude can affect the entire business. And boy, you better believe it in square dancing. At the National Convention in St. Paul, Minnesota in 2002, Jerry Junk presented the keynote address, one of the finest I've ever heard. And the title of it was Attitude is Everything. I keep a copy of his full address on my desk. And usually about once every couple of weeks, I take it out and I read the whole thing all over again. It is absolutely one of the finest documents I've ever come across. If you want to read Attitude is Everything by Jerry Junk, I found it on www.ceder.org and then clicked on articles, and it's in that section. I'll repeat that. It's www.ceder, CEDER. Oh, it is net? Okay, I thought it was org. All right. But anyway, it's under the articles. Anyway, I want to read a few things that he mentioned in this. Without leaders and leadership, no business or recreation can expect to enjoy any degree of longevity. We need to look at our activity with a more realistic and objective view than we have done in the past. We need to recognize that there are things we can control. Recruitment and retention of new dancers are the two most significant challenges facing our activity. Have you heard dancers say that they have asked everyone they know? Well, how about asking someone you don't know? Remember, dancers tend to reflect or mirror the attitudes of their caller. We need to market the activity and sell the feeling of family to a whole group of new people that are searching for us. And the baby boomers are going to be looking for something to do. And they are going to find it. They are going to find it. One big question that I have is, how do you motivate a dancer to recruit or sell our product? Our product has not been selling well lately. We are fighting every kind of form of entertainment. And you know, one of the biggest competitors we have are churches. Churches are starting to build entertainment centers, family basketball courts. I know our church is doing that type of thing. And they know that coming in and opening the Bible and preaching and singing a song and going home, that don't cut it anymore. People are looking for something with a little bit of excitement to do. We developed in our area a brochure, and I have copies of this up here if you'd like one. It just says, "Welcome to our Square Dance Fun Night," and then on it is the club name, and then there's a few things. There's a good-looking picture on the back of some bald-headed fella. And then we have just a little bit about square dancing, what it does, where to go, and how you can get involved in it. And it was developed by one of our callers in that area, and I went in and put it onto Microsoft Word and changed it from his club to our club, and we mailed this out. We made over 1,000 of these things and sent them out. Didn't get a big response. We only had 14 people for lessons, but that's a start. If you want a copy of that, you can email me, and I'll be more than happy to attach it to an email, and you can go in and change the wording and put your own club in there, and then send it to your people. What we do is we send it to our dancers in our club, and we ask each couple to print 10 of them and then mail them to somebody they know. That's what we ask them to do. In the November-December article from the chairman of CALLERLAB, I want to read Tim Mariner's statement. It said, "I'd like to see our entry-level programs become balanced with an even amount of calls, formations, and concepts. Basic, Mainstream, and Plus could have 30 or so calls each. Currently, new dancers are exposed to a large basic program, and the survivors are subject to 17 more Mainstream calls simply because it is far too tempting to finish teaching the rest of the list. We need to reduce basic and allow new dancers time to enjoy the dance. Let them experience creative fun with fewer calls from all formations and arrangements with different dance forms. The stronger foundation would increase proficiency, making them less likely to become discouraged and quit. Forging ahead without this break restricts creativity, lowers dance standards, and sacrifices the most people." We need to really make some changes. And we can't go 2 or 3 years until we make them, because the dancing public is out there. We need to advertise professionally. We need to get the money to do that. And the money comes from us. Money comes from us. I also have another pamphlet, that little handout you can pick up. It's got some ideas of things we've tried. And one thing that I would love to see happen, and then I'll turn it back to Bill, is to take a 3x5 card and put on that little card information about square dancing with a website for people to go to. And every time I mail a bill someplace, to Minnesota or Seattle or Miami or Atlanta, put that card in there and just mail it out, let it go. Doesn't matter. Just let it go. You never know what's going to happen to it. But they can go into that website and find information about square dancing. And just think, if we were to get 250,000 dancers doing that every time they mail a bill to somebody, to pay a bill, every month it's going to reach somebody. You never know what's going to happen. The mechanism to do that is already setting there. You can go to www.dosido.com, hit organization, go to your state, find a club, and there's a contact. It's really that simple. It's right there. That's all we have to do. So the medium is there to do it, but is the will there to do it?
Thank you very much, Paul. It's really fascinating, and Paul and I talked a little bit beforehand, but I'm absolutely fascinated with the track that he went down. I had not seen all of his notes, because we are in 100% agreement. To come back to myself as far as introduction goes, I think most of you know who I am, but I started calling in 1978 when Peggy and I lived in Zurich, Switzerland. We lived in Europe for 10 and a half years. We were working for a private bank at the time. And I only wish I had started dancing sooner, because, as you know, there's great dancing in Europe. When we came back to the States, I started calling in 78. I took over the teaching of a Mainstream club in 1980, fall of 80. It was actually John Kaltenthaler's club in northern New Jersey. And Fran was one of my students in the club. She's been calling 15 years now, or 17, or what are you up to? Anyway, Fran and her daughter were in the club. And her grandson was in the playpen behind me most of the time. The only thing I had to do once is I had to stop him from playing a toy that had like a friction motor in it. And it's not because the motor was disturbing me. It was on the wrong key. And I was having trouble staying on the song. But as most of you also know, I got pretty much into the business side of the industry. And in 1982, we started as square dance vendors. 1983, I purchased Supreme Audio. In 1987, I bought Hanhurst Tape Service from Don and Loretta Hanhurst. In the intervening years, I bought 4, 5, 6, or 7 really tiny tape services along the way, and we ran that until April of 2005, just before the convention, when we sold it to Tom and Pam Dillander, mostly for health reasons, I might add. And as many of you know, I also ended up in the hospital shortly thereafter with a quadruple bypass. The reality is that I have spent most of my life in marketing. First, it was in banking, both domestic and internationally, and I was marketing banking services throughout Europe for 10 and a half years. So I am fully vested in the concept of marketing. I was relatively early on computers. I was very early on the internet and got on really fast. And in 1999, we acquired dosado.com, and I increased that website fivefold or so. It probably was larger than that. It is a wonderful resource, and I'd like just a quick show of hands. How many of you have either your personal caller listing or your club's listing on Dosado? Okay, that's good. That's great. If you don't have it there, you ought to do it. It's free. All you have to do is go to dosado.com, and right in the upper navigation bar it says free listing. Click on it, and then you differentiate between caller listing, caller queuer, or club. Very simple, straightforward form to fill out. Pam Dillender is doing all of those listings personally now, and she's very good about getting them up. They'll be up certainly within a week for sure, and probably within a day or two, and you ought to really take advantage of it. The promotion is free, and the traffic is wonderful. Does anybody have any idea how many unique visitors that website gets every day? Just shout out a number. A little high. We actually get 2,600. Keep in mind it's a small industry. We're getting 2,600 unique visitors on the website every day and have been getting that traffic level for at least half the time that I had owned it, and now Tom and Pam have owned it. They've been running it for 3 years now. Gets terrific volume. Another wonderful website is cedar.net, CEDER.net. Vic Cedar has and Debbie, have a wonderful website with a lot of resource material on it, a lot of choreographic help on there, some very excellent products, I might add. And they are very, very dedicated to the activity. They have a wonderfully extensive caller listing, as do we, and they have a wonderful listing of club activity, as do we. It doesn't matter which of the websites you use. You should be using both of them, actually. Nobody gets any money for your using it. It's a free resource that Vic and Debbie and Tom and Pam now provide to the community. They don't charge for the listings. If you're a vendor, there's a very nominal fee just to cover the price of setting up the ad. But other than that, it's absolutely free, and I've had callers over the years tell me how many dates they've gotten from their listing on dosado.com. And you're given, I think it's 80 or 85 characters to do your listing. You can just look at the listing and write a similar listing for yourself and shoot it up there. The question comes up very often, is this a business or not? Paul answered it. I actually don't care whether you're a hobby caller or solely dependent on it solely for your living. It is a business, and it's not just because the Internal Revenue Service defines it as a business. It is a business. There is cash flowing, there's advertising, there's activity, there are commitments being made, obligations incurred in every sense of the word, not just financial obligations. There are time obligations, and there are things that you are promising to the callers, among other things, as a caller or queuer. When you stand up on the stage, the assumption is, A, you know what you're doing and you've taken the care to receive proper training. B, that you have equipment and hopefully some backup equipment to properly present the dance for the evening. In the old days, if you didn't have a spare needle, it may be a spare computer now, but if you don't have a spare needle and that causes you to fail to finish the evening's dance, you have broken a contract. Because whether it's written in the contract or not, your contract is to provide all the resources necessary to call the dance from to. And the club certainly shouldn't have to specify what is included in that, because you all know that. So you have obligations to spend a fair amount of money on equipment unless you can build it yourself, and you certainly have the obligation to do the training. Anything that has those requirements overlaid with a professional standard, such as the standard of being a member of CALLERLAB, having BMI ASCAP licensing, and the abiding by the code of conduct, creates a complete circle of a profession. That's what professions do. If you're a dentist, you do the same thing. You have little tools that pick out things in teeth. You have your doctor's, your dental degree from a dental university and so forth. And there's really no difference in what your obligation is there. Along with that obligation, you also have the obligation to market yourself. And I have to be honest with you, I think marketing is probably the most important aspect of this whole activity for callers and queuers. A lot of what you do ends up building up a reputation, hopefully a positive one, but it could be a negative one. I'm assuming none of those negative ones are in the room. And your reputation could certainly carry you so far, but you do have the obligation to continue the marketing of yourself and of your skill within your calling area. That calling area may just be one rural club or a couple of rural clubs, depending on where you live. It may be a group of clubs in a smaller region. You may be a large regional caller. You might be a national caller. I was very much a local club caller. I never went further than, I believe, Princeton, New Jersey to call a dance. I was really just a local club guy, and I rather enjoyed doing that for a fair number of years. But you do have the obligation to properly prepare yourself and to do the marketing so that you continue to enhance your business. The product is everything. The product is defined as the service that you deliver. Now, I know a couple of callers, one caller in particular, who could not carry a tune in a bucket. But he was very popular because dancers loved him. And he could, quote, get away with not being a great singer, but he was running a fun evening. In the early days, I took actually a fair amount of professional training because I like to think of myself as a person of high standards. I may not be able to always to meet the calling qualities, as Roy probably knows very well, because most of the callers around were actually better than I was. But I always made very high demands of myself, and I hadn't yet mastered sight calling. I was struggling, and I was several years into calling, and I still couldn't get it live. I could sit at a table with you and tell you exactly what I ought to be doing, but I couldn't do it live. And I hired Bill Peters, then of Hawaii, as a matter of fact, to come in and coach me one-on-one. And he spent 4 hours in the afternoon coaching me. And he came to my dance that night. It happened to be a plus class. He spent 2.5 hours sitting in the class. The critique after the class took 3 hours and 2 really big bottles of wine. Now, maybe if I hadn't had the wine there, it wouldn't have taken that long. And one of the things he said to me after the class, he said, "You're still having trouble with your sight calling. Because you're fun and your students like you, you can probably get away with it. But you owe them more." And I went, oh. It was like sticking a knife in my body, because he was 100% right. You owe them more if you have personal pride, if you're a skilled person who values your perception, person who values what you're all about, then you do have the obligation to get that next skill. So I took it to heart, and that next Monday night I had my next class, and I get halfway to class, and I forgot all my cue cards back home. I forgot all my paperwork. And I said to myself, I've got to run back home and get it. And I said, no, actually I don't. I think there's a signal there that maybe it's time to, I used to use the old Hilton 3x5 cue cards, if you're familiar with those. I think maybe it's time to just leave them where they are by the fireside. And I went to the class that night and probably called actually one of the best classes I've ever called. I didn't do it intentionally. I sort of got myself in the jam. But my only point here is that you owe it to your dancers to excel to the best of your ability. Are you going to be the top caller in the country? Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But frankly, that's not really relevant to your local club. But you do owe them the preparation, the equipment, focus, marketing, and skill sets. That's what you owe them. That's the contract. Written or not, that's the contract. I'd like to come back to something that Paul said a moment ago, and that is the whole generational change and so forth. As many of you know, when I sold Hanhurst, I kept Supreme Audio, supremeaudio.com. We deal exclusively in wireless microphones and sound systems for the fitness industry. Gold's Gym, World Gym, YMCA's, Jewish community centers, colleges, U.S. military fitness facilities, public agencies, and so forth. I can tell you for a fact, they know the demographic curve, and they're ready for it. They're marketing like crazy. The gyms are expanding like crazy because it's those folks who now have the money, the time, and the interest. They're interested in health and physical fitness, and they're going to either be going to the gym or to the baseball diamond or to the bowling alley or horseback riding in Arizona, wherever it might be. They are going to be doing more physical activities, and it really provides very fertile ground for recruiting for square dancing. I just went to the session before this. I know a couple of you were in there. Leah Veronica from Simi Valley, Chatsworth, California. And she gave a presentation on recruiting. She had a wonderful recruiting package there. It was one of the best presentations I can ever remember being given at CALLERLAB. It was simply outstanding. Dynamic person, smart, working at this program since 2001, putting her own money on the table to get it done. If you're planning on buying any CDs from Scott up front, please include recruiting in there. It'll be the best money you spend. It was really wonderful. Just 101 ideas in there, and she's willing to talk to you about the ideas that they've done. Some of them are sort of things that everybody has done already, but they've done every one of them with a slightly different flair. A lot of marketing, a lot of paperwork, personal invitations, personal follow-up. People respond to that. And they've increased their dancer membership in the club by about 50 or 70%. I forget the exact statistic, but she can prove that stuff actually does work over time, and you just have to work at it and be patient. My last comments. Well, maybe not my last ones, but my last prepared comments. Every time I come to CALLERLAB and every time I sit down at various meetings, even our own local Callers Association, I always think of the film Groundhog Day. Everybody know the film Groundhog Day? Bill, what's his name? Murray. Bill Murray just keeps on living the same day. He can't get away from it. It just, that Thursday, whatever day it was, just keeps on happening again and again. And I have to tell you, I was thinking of it today. Just as I was getting out of bed, I wrote these notes this morning. I said, that's really how I'm feeling right now. In the early 1980s, I came back to the United States in 1980. In 83 or 4, I was invited by Jim, who owned Promenader Shoes, and a number of other dance leaders across the country to go down to what used to be Andy's Trout Farm, I believe it was then Cope Crest, to sit around and talk about the decline in square dancing, and we're in a crisis, and as I always love to say it, stand up in a big circle, hold hands, and sing Kumbaya. Okay? There were a lot of tears shed. Everybody there was as serious as I was, really with good spirit and good heart. Although not at Andy's Trout Farm or Copecrest, I've participated in at least 2 or 3 of those things in some kind of modified fashion. I've been on untold ad hoc committees. I'm sort of sick of the discussion. I really am, and I don't mean that in a critical way. I'm not critical of anybody who organized those or anybody who participated in it. We can't really depend on organizations, and I mean all organizations, CALLERLAB, RounderLab, Arts, and all that. These are all wonderful things, and there's some wonderful organizations doing really good things with great committee work. But for your club, your calling career, and the activity in your area, you don't have time to wait. Because if you're waiting for another demographic study or another impact study of what will this do or that do, they're all good, and I really mean this. I'm not saying they shouldn't be done. I think they absolutely should be done. There's some good research going on. But for you personally, don't wait for the report to come. You've got to act now. Because if you don't act now, the train's going to be out of the station. And you're going to get all frustrated, and you're going to get disappointed, and you're going to quit calling or not be positive or not be enthusiastic. My last comment, and I've been accused of being Billy One Tune, and if that be the case, then so be it. The theft of music has to stop. Not because it's immoral, not because it's illegal, but because it's going to kill this industry. That's the reason why it's got to stop. I'm not arguing morality here. We all know that it's wrong. But you can stop it. I'm not suggesting anybody in this room is stealing music. And you don't have to nod or you don't have to tell me. but I know you can name 3 names and write it in your little notebook of people who are doing it. And it's up to you to stop it from happening. The NEC is having some really constructive discussions on this. It's been an issue at the convention for years now. I know that Roundelab has had that discussion. Right now, and these figures are quotable, they're not official, they don't come from Tom, they come from me. I am suggesting that right now, the rate of music theft in the square dance industry exceeds 50%, and I'm suggesting that the theft rate in the round dance industry exceeds 95%. Okay? So if that isn't a wake-up call to you, the producers actually had to sit down the other day to try and figure out what they can do together to promote music and to get people buying, and that was obviously one of the very important subjects. The music that is stolen is a disincentive. It's unfair to you. You are paying for the stolen music. And when the prices go up next month, and they will, and they'll go up 6 months from now, they have to keep these guys in business, you're paying for it. You are paying for the theft no differently than Walmart adds X% on to their prices to pay for employee and customer theft, and Sears Roebuck does the same thing, and Macy's does the same thing. Every store in this country has to add that kind of pricing onto their product to pay for it. Folks, you are the folks bearing that bill. So you're paying for it out of your own pocket. That's unfair, and it hits you personally where you can least afford it. Gas is expensive enough now to get to your next dance, and it will be a disincentive for the producers to spend lots of money to produce new, interesting music, and Tom and Pam Dillander at Hanhurst Palomino will not be in business if this continues. So I'm not here. I have no dog in this fight. I'm not actively calling. I don't own any businesses in this industry anymore. So I'm not talking about my money. I'm talking about your future and the future of the activity. And I'm assuming that none of you is stealing the music. But if you know people who are, you have to get the gumption to tell them right to their face to stop it. And if you're at a festival where you see 2 mini discs hooked together, or 2 computers hooked together, or a thumb drive, memory stick and things like that, and you see that happening, you've got to say something. And it's embarrassing, and it's difficult. But I'm telling you guys and gals, your life will depend on it. And I hate to be the lecturer on this subject. It's not a pretty subject. I've been talking about this subject publicly for 10 years now. And I got to be honest with you, I'm a little tired of the subject, and frankly, I don't think I'm going to talk about it again. I've written articles on it. I've been published in American Square Dance Magazine. Bill Boyd is really big on this subject. He understands it, and he's published an article. Published it 2 months ago, I think it was. It's been on the Do-Si-Do website. I think Vic has some things on his website. It is life-threatening. And if you don't think it's life-threatening, don't even bother to do your marketing and building up your caller skills. There'll just be nothing left. I'm not the doomsday machine here. I'm begging you to take it seriously and do something about it. And let your friends know at the callers associations and other events, you just got to stop. You're killing me. You're killing me, not Bill Heyman, not Tom Dillander, not Elmer Sheffield or Wade Driver. That's not who you're killing. You're killing you. They're killing you. And they're killing the activity that you like. I'm sorry to end on that note because as anybody knows me, I'm a really positive guy, but this has just got to move forward. We've got to get back on a positive track so that we stand a chance of doing good marketing, good skill set building, and really, really get into the marketing side of it. And again, closing comment, I really hope you do buy that promotional thing. Sorry to throw such a wet blanket. You're all looking at me so seriously, and I'm responsible for that, and I do apologize. But I don't know how else to get the message out. I've said this several times at CALLERLAB already over the past 4 years, and it's not worked so far. With that appalling last commentary, would anybody like to make any constructive comments how we can move forward? I know the sequence of how I did it was probably wrong, but forgive me. Roy, would you be Mike Boy? Yeah. Roy is my eye candy. I always like an attractive person passing the mic around.
Thank you, Roy. Anyway, Don Thompson, Paradise, California. Couple things. Paul, on that card that you say to mail in with your bills being paid, Bill can amplify on what he and I witnessed in the RPM committee earlier today. That's a direct impact on that, having to do with the website, logo, and all that stuff coming up. Second point, more personal. You mentioned about health clubs, fitness centers. I'll testify. I'm doing a Friday evening walk in the door, 2-hour fun session for the sake of, in our small community, just putting out the word, putting out the word, putting out the word. It's a real big payer. I get paid $15 an hour. But, you know, I have anywhere from 1 to 3 squares. We do it twice a month, have 1 to 3 squares each time. And guess who shows up? Is it teenagers? No. Is it 20-year-olds? No. It's retirees. You got it. They're coming out. That's who has the time and the interest.
Let me just say one thing about using dancers. We need to be very careful how we use dancers. And I don't care what anybody says. We use them. We get them to promote for us and so forth. They're our sales force. One thing that I do with the 2 clubs that I call for, I begin cultivating a very strong relationship with the vice presidents of those clubs, because for the most part, they move on up into the presidencies. And the thing that I try to do with them is to give them ideas that I want done without them knowing they're my ideas and they come up with them. I don't care who comes up with the idea, as long as we're going to go in the same direction that I want. Both of my clubs are growing, not fast, but they're growing. Financially, they're very sound. They pay me very well. Still not enough money, but, people will ask me, how much do you make? And I always say, not enough. Not enough. I don't talk salaries because you can't win doing that. But begin to talk to your vice president. Let them know the things that you want done. Find continuity in the transition from vice president to the president. That is probably one of the best things you can do to keep your club going in the direction you want them to go in. Integrity, it goes without saying. There have been a lot of times that I've got a call, people wanted me to call for double the money than what I would make on a gig that I've already signed a contract on. All you have to do once is cancel out and take another dance. You might as well kiss your career goodbye because you can't be trusted. And I know callers who have done that, and boy, they are really sorry they did it. But I've never done that. I have never been late for a dance. I have never been unprepared for a dance except one. And I got a call. I've been calling for 27 years. And I got a call at 7:15 one night, and it was a club about 20 minutes from the house. They said, our caller can't come. Can you come help us? And I did. I went, and for some reason, it was one of the best dance nights I ever had. And that usually happens because you're more focused. But trust, integrity, and honesty, decency, it builds character. And character builds trust in people. Okay.
Yes, Roy, go ahead. Yeah. Yep, that's fine.
April Kendall, Fairfield, California. I find that one of the things that we have to do is change the attitude of our older dancers. So many of them have been around years, and they feel that, things are really declining. Things are really declining. And the more they talk about it, the more they make it happen. And so I think we have to change their attitudes and put them in a position where they're seeing a turnaround.
Do you have younger dancers in that same club?
You mean like they're still working? Yes.
Younger. Let me be more. Thank you. Younger, alive. No.
Yes. We have
who are not deceased. Younger in the sense of smart enough and willing enough to do the kind of work and promotion that you're talking about.
Yes,
yeah.
But I think there's a lot of people out there that are saying this. Things are really declining, and those are the people that we have to change their attitude. I think the younger ones that have that spark, they don't have that attitude.
Yeah. My judgment on that's a great question. My judgment on that would be is if those older people are stubborn old codgety people who are talking that way, there's most likely nothing you can do to convince them to change their mind. The way to change the mind is to build the club around them. Don't discourage them from coming. Don't discourage them from dancing in any way, but take that younger or more capable, better attitude set and build the house around them. They view it as a two-room cottage at the moment. There are those who can and those who probably don't want to. No problem at all. By the time you finish building the mansion around them of an operating club, the room of those who don't want to, A, will either exist and will be a very small percentage of the final structure, or B, will probably be an empty room because those people realize that there are people in the next room having more fun.
Well, I wasn't necessarily talking about people in our club. I was thinking more of people who are in different associations who have been around the square dance world for a long time, maybe 25, 30 years. And yes, they're seeing a decline. But the world has changed in many ways, and we're going to see it change again. And I think that's the people that I'm talking about. And a lot of those people are more in the political end and do not dance as much anymore.
And I'm not going to repeat my answer, but even more so, I know the people you talk about. They were in my old area. I have to admit, in New England, I actually don't have any of those people around. But we all know in this room exactly who that category of person is, that they've been around. They probably think they know everything, but they're doing nothing to move the activity forward, whether it's a small regional association, a statewide association, whatever. Again, build the house around them. Simply continue to build. They're not going to tear you down. They're not strong enough to tear you down if you get the smart ones and the hard-working ones to build around them. Just keep going. Do something. Build around them, and they will, in percentage terms, diminish in voice as you build the structure around them, and the success will actually silence them to a great extent. And if they're still muckering around, then they're still muckering around. There's nothing you can do about it in reality. I'm in a sort of a tough stage of my life right now, to be very honest with you, because I'm less tolerant of people like that, but I'm not going to go have a fight with them. I'm simply going to work twice as hard to build the success anyway. I don't know if I answered it, but any other comments from the floor, questions, challenges? Roy.
I had an observation and then a comment. I just thought it was interesting earlier that you compared the calling profession to that of a dentist. I guess it's both like pulling teeth. But, and when you were talking about, don't wait for the report, I just happened to recently read a Will Rogers quote. Actually, two of them. One said he's not a member of an organized party. He's a Democrat. The other one was, but an appropriate quote from Will Rogers, and that was quite a while ago. He said, even if you're on the right track, if you're still sitting there, you're going to get run over.
On dosido.com, in the history section, you click on history, and you go to there are, I believe, 2 or 3 articles by Ed Gilmore, dated 1961, 62, something like that. And in one of the articles, there are a couple of sound clips. They're in really bold, like 1-inch type on the left. You just click on that, and you get the sound clip. And this was the article is actually a transcription of a tape that Brian Hotchkiss had, and he transcribed it and was put on the website actually prior to my acquisition of it. And I don't remember the exact words on there, but he talks about the kind of people to whom you were alluding. That they're that they're ill-behaved, that they're not being helpful and all that. And his comment was, that's just people being people. Because, it's the human condition. Not everybody functions as cleverly or as focused as you might do it or as I might do it. But that's just people being people. And I sort of get philosophical and sort of skirt around them and just work the edges if you have to get in there. Comment in the back? No? Please.
One thing that our attitudes are extremely important. And the attitude that I have with the dancers is that there's absolutely nothing more important than a dancer. And we need to remember that. Because this is not just a business, it's a social life, and we live it and we love it, or we wouldn't be in it, that's for sure. So be very careful with the way you treat dancers.
Okay, Ruth Riegelhaupt-Herzig from Sunnyvale, California. I have both a comment and a request for advice. In the last 5 years, our club has grown by over 1,000%, which sounds really impressive, except we started out with 2 people. So we are growing very slowly and painfully. But it's interesting to me, the comments about the doom and gloomsday people, because we don't have those in our club, which actually has both a pro and a con to it. The pro is, obviously, we don't have a lot of whining going on, a lot of negativity around us. The downside is it's really hard to get them, the members of our club, to feel like they're part of something they need to help grow. The people who have been around 25, 30 years understand that concept of how square dancing has grown historically, how you get it going, being part of something. They all love being part of the club, but it's a once-a-week thing for them. They don't have that sense of community that the 25, 30-year members have. So I'm wondering what advice you have for me to convey that to my new dancers who have been dancing under 5 years.
Does your club visit much, other clubs?
It's very difficult for me to get them to go out. This year is the first time I've been able to get them to go out more than they have historically.
What you need to do is tell them that you've been invited to a party and let everybody dress as crazy as they can dress. And wait until after the first tip begins, and about 3 minutes into the patter of the first tip, your group just walk into that dance hall and start walking around shaking everybody's hands. That will build excitement like you wouldn't believe. And it really will. It really will. Just dress in cat costumes, a bear costumes, a gypsy, Cleopatra, like a Halloween thing, but don't do it at Halloween. Just walk in and just walk right in the collar. It'll shake him up. That'd be good for callers, especially if he's young.
Ruth, the answer to your question, in addition to what Paul said, was given by Lee Veronica in the last hour in reality, because she talked about all the gimmicky things, approaches, words you can use, documents you can use, letters you can write. It's all promotional. It's every piece of her paperwork, and this is not all of it, there's a double bulletin board in there. Every piece of her paperwork had excitement and action on it. Okay? And I realize not everybody responds to that, but out of, buy the CD, out of those 40 or 50 things that she threw up in the air, and they're doing all of them, maybe you can cherry pick a couple. I don't know. Every club is different.
I'm actually doing a lot of the things that she suggested, and I was at her session. I thought it was absolutely stupendous. But the problem is getting them to understand they need to do it, not the ways to do it, but getting them to understand that they are part of this.
What's the average age of the group you're talking about?
They're either kids or their parents.
Okay. You can't expect the kids to participate. I'm not telling you this because I know you know that. I'm just commenting publicly. You can't expect kids to participate in the governance of the. They can participate in the governance of what kind of pizza they want for the pizza party, for the kids section. But you can't really expect anybody under the age of 18, realistically. and I know you have a daughter who's a caller, you can't realistically expect them to participate in the shaping. They can shape the nature of the little party they're going to have, but that in fairness to them. So you really have to focus on the adult population, 18 or above, or pick whatever threshold you have. And those are the people who have to do it, and you have to find some vehicle to excite the parents. And my suggestion is, since it's a parents-children thing, it's got to be probably kid-centric. Yeah, it would have to be kid-centric. I don't know if that's going to an amusement park and dancing a demo in the park. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, not necessarily a roller coaster, but some kind of amusing venue, or a children's restaurant where they would let you dance and do a demo for the other kids, and you go in there with 15 people after your regular club dance and do a demo. Once again, I'm groping for things, but think of other kid-centric things that might be things. I don't know if you have Ground Round, the restaurant in that area, or there are other kids. Yeah, Chuck E. Cheese is probably even a better one. A Chuck E. Cheese type place that's really a kids restaurant. You don't go there for fine dining. Well, kids do, but they don't have good taste. Yes, up here, Roy, please.
Is your issue there that the membership isn't involved and you can't get a fire under them, that kind of stuff? Yeah, mostly do. We've got a lot of them. So basically, their habit is to just go to your regularly scheduled dances. They participate in that, have a good time, and then disappear, right? Okay. Then it occurs to me that you don't really know, if you're just a square dancer, your contact with other dancers is, I guess it's properly defined by sociologists as institutional relationship, that you don't really get involved with them. You just see them and then go your own way. And you don't really develop friendships unless you do something else together too. And I don't know that you need to throw a party or anything like that, but to entice them to participate in do they show up at membership meetings? There's one. Something meaningful like a membership meeting, committee meetings. They wouldn't even, not even on I don't mean a standing committee where it's all the time, but just to plan or help pull off an event or something like that. When you're working with somebody on something meaningful, you get to know them in a different way than you do just dancing with them. And so you develop rapport and learn something about them and become interested in some of them at least. And so you develop far more meaningful friendships than you do just dancing with them, if you can relate to that. I don't know if I'm making sense, actually. Well, they don't want a job. But anyway, that's a start at it. It's hard for me to just describe this off the top. All right, thank you.
I had an opportunity. We lived in Florida. Well, we lived all over the country, but in Florida, our club down there used a school, an elementary school. And as part of their outreach program for the school, they allowed our club to dance there. So anyway, I found out that the school phys ed education teacher was going to have square dancing for their 4th grade class. And I asked Miss Franklin, I said, well, who's going to teach it? Well, I am. We have some records that we have, and these were developed back in the 50s. And they could use some improvement. But anyway, I said, well, I'll tell you what to do. I said, if you can get it cleared through the Board of Education, I will come and teach your class for you during the day. She said, you're kidding. I said, no. I said, you let our club dance here for nothing. And I said, I'm willing to trade that off with you as appreciation. So they got it cleared. We had 5 squares of 4th graders. The boys didn't want to touch the girls. We went through, it was unreal. I won't tell you what I had to go through, security clearance, criminal back check, blood test, drug test, and everything. But nevertheless, fingerprints, anyway. But nevertheless, we had the kids going. I couldn't teach them fast enough, for one thing. They really began to develop beautifully, and I went through all kinds of calls with those kids. So toward the end of the 6-week course, I asked Ms. Franklin, would it be allowed to invite those children, to invite their parents to come to our club, and we'll have a Friday night club dance featuring these fourth graders. She said, oh, I don't know if they'll do that. I said, would you check? Well, they approved it. So these children came. We had over 250 people come, from grandparents, parents, siblings. It was unbelievable. So we were going to give a demonstration on the children. We got them up and we danced. There were people crying because it was so beautiful. We got 14 couples, parents, out of that group coming to our next class. And then we did some demonstrations at other schools to show what had happened. I didn't have the time to go around to all those elementary schools and do that stuff. But if you can just get into one of them, you can pick up parents who are looking for something that they can do together. And young parents need that. They need to get away from those kids once in a while. It's just an idea at work.
Dave Harry from Seattle, Washington. I'm not sure if I'm reading you right. You're trying to get them to go from their club to other clubs to dance. Is that what you're trying to? Okay.
My motivation is to get them to be more participating in the recruiting, going to their friends. I have one family who went out to their friends and pulled people in and brought them in. And by the way, it was incredibly successful. We got probably about a square from that one family. But the rest of them have, and that was somebody who graduated last year. But most of them are kind of stagnant. They don't look at it as they should try to bring their friends in. That's what I'm talking about. By the way, we go into the schools. I got 2 families from one of the schools I went to last spring. So it's not that I can't recruit. I mean, I am doing it, but I feel like I'm doing all of it by myself. And I don't mind leading, but what I'm asking is how can I make the people in the club understand that it would be better if they could help too, that the way we grow the club, I guess because I'm doing so much is part of the problem, is that they say, she's growing the club, I don't need to. Maybe that's part of the issue. I don't know. But how do I get them interested? But to their credit, they will do demos. And I'm very careful about how many I ask of them. So I will say that.
Okay, last couple of comments. Go ahead, Jason. Oh, Dave had the microphone. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Okay. I work a lot with youth, so I know a little bit of the problems that you're getting at. One of the problems you have is that no matter how hard you try, you're not going to accomplish what you want. Those kids aren't going to actively go out and recruit for you that way. So I guess what I would suggest is you to continue on doing what you're doing and maybe add some pool parties or some special events that don't involve square dancing, that they can invite. I mean, you're just going to have one big party and you ask each one of them to invite a friend and have a party. And just get that acquaintance growing that way, and then eventually go from there to getting them to come out and dance with you, or have do a party and tie it with a special event where you introduce square dancing to those kids. But ask those kids to go out and ask their friends to bring square dancing in. Square dancing does not have the best reputation in schools. It's hokey. But once you get past the hokiness of our activity, it's a blast. And almost every single school-age kid will enjoy it once they get a chance to experience. I teach square dancing in the public schools every day. And I would say 90% of the kids that I touch in square dancing will come back later sometime in life and get involved with the activity. And not only that, but, I see them as I'm catching the ferry or going to a fair or going to Southern California, even though I live in Washington, And if they see me, they'll come up and tell me that was the best activity of all that they had in PE. So I know that our activity is great. It's just a matter of getting over that hump. But your students, your dancers, are just deathly afraid of what their friends are going to think of them until their friends actually experience the activity. So you got to get them through the back door, so to speak.
Yeah. Good. Last comment up in front? Jason? Yeah. You sure? Okay. That's fine. I think the time has come that we should wrap it up. Thank you, Paul, for your wonderful presentation. Everybody give Paul a big hand. Thank you.